She healed a mafia boss's wounds the next day, revealed 200 loyal men surrounding her home. It was a typical gray evening in the worn-down town of Elmwood, where dreams flickered like the dying lights of the old factory. Samantha, a fierce yet compassionate nurse, squeezed the last bit of coffee from her thermos, eyes heavy yet heart steadfast. At 28, she embodied the struggle of the American dream, not through wealth, but through the grit of supporting her ailing mother and younger brother, both dependent on her strength. As she rushed to the hospital for yet another double shift, little did she know this night would change everything. Just as she settled into the dimly lit emergency room, the ominous sound of sirens pierced through the air, growing louder and more frantic. The chaos burst through the doors with Tony, the chair, D'Amato, the notorious Mafia boss, bleeding and gasping for breath. The room fell silent as the medical team sprang into action, but it was Samantha who instinctively took the lead. Her hands trembled a bit, not from fear, but in anger at the unfairness of it all. Here was a man whose name invoked terror, yet she saw a human in need. As she performed a life-saving procedure, the gravity of the moment hung in the air, a beacon of hope amid despair. News spread like wildfire through Elmwood. A nurse had saved a mobster. Some were quick to hail her bravery, while others whispered betrayal behind closed doors, casting her as a pariah in her own neighborhood. Samantha felt the weight of their stares, the coldness of their judgments. She returned home that night, her heart aching as she confronted her mother's fading hopes and her brother's innocent curiosity. Then, something unexpected blossomed amidst the hostility. As she cared for Tony during his recovery, they formed a strange bond. Moments stolen between her shifts revealed his own vulnerabilities, breathing a hint of humanity into his rough exterior. Slowly, walls began to crumble. She saw his dreams, his childhood long lost to the dangers of his chosen life. In his eyes, a flicker of something she hadn't expected. Hope, but danger lurked, as it always does in darkness. Word of a hit on Tony's life sent tremors through the community and through Samantha's heart. She stood at a crossroads, torn between fierce loyalty to her family and the unexpected connection shared with a man others deemed irredeemable. She knew she had to act. The very fabric of her community and her very family depended on her decision. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting elongated shadows, she gathered Tony's men, steeling herself against the pressure from neighbors watching with scornful eyes. In that quiet moment, pondering her decision, Samantha asked herself, what does it truly mean to be loyal? Just as tension crescendoed, a loud knock echoed through her door, signaling the arrival of forces she couldn't control. In that heartbeat, everything hung in the balance. What would this night bring? The knock echoed like thunder, shaking Samantha from her thoughts. She glanced at the tranquil faces of Tony's men gathered in her living room, a mix of uncertainty and courage reflecting in their eyes. The stark contrast between the uncertainty of the moment and the loyalty they had shown her in this treacherous situation struck her heart. Stay here, Samantha directed, her voice steadier than she felt. With a deep breath, she approached the door, her pulse quickening. Each step echoed her resolve to protect what little she held dear. One push, and the door swung open. A heavy-set man loomed in the entryway, his broad shoulders casting a shadow that seemed to darken the whole room. You don't know what you've gotten yourself into, nurse. His voice was gravelly, a warning wrapped in menace. James, she recognized his name as a member of Tony's crew, though he had never shown much loyalty to her before. What are you doing here? I don't want trouble. Trouble found you the moment you helped Tony. That makes you a target, he spat, unflinching. Samantha's heart raced. The world outside her door felt hostile as it seemed to compress around her. I can handle this. I know what I'm doing, she replied, trying to convince herself as much as him. But deep down, the frigid grip of fear began to creep in. Another man stood beside James, his eyes darting nervously as he weighed the tension. You really care about him, don't you? He asked, blinking rapidly. Think you can really save a man like that? The bitter reminder of who Tony was clawed at her. Before she could answer, another set of knocks pounded against the door, urgent and demanding. Each knock reverberated through her, and she glanced back at her living room packed with men who had become defenders in an unexpected war. They were loyal to Tony and by extension to her. Would her actions bind her to their fate? Stay back, she whispered to the worry etched on their faces. But she couldn't find the breath to reassure them. This wasn't just about her anymore. She was standing between a life and a death. Gathering her courage, she swung the door wide open again, only to be met by an unexpected sight: the faces of their neighbors, eyes filled with a mixture of anger and something else. Fear. Or something deeper, perhaps solidarity. "What are you doing here?" Samantha's voice trembled but was firm. "Not letting you face this alone." One woman stepped forward. A neighbor she had cared for during her shifts, her expression defiant. "We stand with you, Sam." A small murmur of agreement rippled through the group behind her, emboldening Samantha. This wasn't just Tony's fight, nor solely hers. It was Elmwood's in the most twisted sense. The boundaries that separated them blurred in the face of something bigger. They all faced the same darkness. James scoffed, taking a step back, realizing he was outnumbered. But the warning couldn't shake off the air like an unwelcome stench. "You'll regret this," he muttered before slowly retreating. But the threat hung like an ominous cloud. The surge of unity freaked her out, yet it also kindled something fierce within her. "This isn't just about Tony's life," she said, raising her voice to rally them. "It's about refusing to let fear dictate what we do. We decide our fate, not the mob." She sensed the fire reigniting in them, a shared determination echoing her own. It was no longer about just saving one man, it was about them all confronting deep-seated fears together. But just as that spark formed into something greater, the night grew darker. From the shadows, more figures began to emerge, the promise of danger stirring the ground beneath their feet. "Tonight is just the beginning," Samantha whispered to herself, clenching her fists. What lay ahead was uncertain, but now she was ready to fight for everyone. How would they face what was coming next? Would they stand together or fall apart? The fog of night swallowed the answers whole as they braced for the clash ahead. Panic surged through Samantha as she watched the dark figures move closer, their silhouettes blurred against the cold glow of streetlights. What had started as a fight for one man had ignited a battle that could consume them all. She could feel the tension tangible in the air, a heavy weight pressing down on her, and everyone gathered beside her. "Stay strong," she called out, turning back to her neighbors and Tony's men. Their steadfast presence offered a flicker of courage in her chest, but shadows danced erratically at the edges of her resolve. She had never imagined this would come to pass. Standing among a united front against the chaos that threatened to swallow them whole, the sounds of footsteps grew louder, accompanied by a low rumble of voices menacing and authoritative. A figure stepped into the light, chest out, eyes sharp and assessing. It was Marco, another notorious name from the neighborhood. "You think they'll save you?" he sneered, scanning the crowd with mocking disbelief. "You're only prolonging the inevitable." Samantha felt a wave of nausea wash over her. Her instincts screamed danger, yet she forced herself to remain firm. "I want to back down." The words escaped her lips with more power than she felt inside. If she faltered now, everything they had built, this fragile alliance, would crumble. "I'm going to make this easy for you, nurse," Marco continued, his eyes narrowing in intimidation. "You let him go, and you save everyone here from a world of hurt. Or you can keep playing the martyr. Your choice." The group shifted nervously, whispers of unsure thoughts flitting around her. She could see the wavering support behind her. The all-too-real faces of neighbors she had once bandaged and cared for now looked back at her, hearts racing, hope dimming as terror crept in. "Do we really want to do this?" A voice called from the back, a neighbor of hers who had once smiled over coffee during the peaceful days. "What if it's not worth it?" Dread tightened around Samantha's heart, squeezing. It would be easy to retreat, to save them all by giving in. But the mere thought of abandoning Tony twisted her stomach. She loved him with all his flaws and darkness. And now she was pouring everything she had into something grander, the hope of a community rising to reclaim their lives. "We are worth it," she shouted, more for herself than anyone else. "No more living in fear. If we step back now, it's just going to get worse. We hold the power here. Together." The quiet murmurs around her shifted, swells of agreement rising stronger this time, like waves crashing against the shore. She could see determination blooming in their eyes, fierce and unyielding. "You think you're brave because you have a crowd, huh?" Marco scoffed, but there was unease in his voice, an inkling of uncertainty creeping into his bravado. Samantha took a step forward, hands clenched, her own determination solidified. "We're not just a crowd. We're a community, and we won't let you control us any longer. You wanna fight? Then let us have one, but know this: there's strength in unity." As if emboldened by her words, the group rallied around her, their voices ringing out in unison. "We stand together," they cried. The air thickened with resolve, a barrier forming around them like an invisible shield against the encroaching shadow of Marco and his crew. But she knew the fight was far from over, and even as hope surged, a dread coiled within her. A voice interjected from the back, a deeper, chilling tone that silenced the onlookers. "And what if unity isn't enough?" Samantha's heart sank. What new threat had emerged, lurking in the darkness, ready to strike? The night's chill seeped in deeper as she prepared for whatever fate lay ahead, wondering if loyalty would truly be their salvation, or lead them deeper into the abyss. The confrontation was looming. What would they face next? Would their united front hold? Or would it shatter under the weight of uncertainty? As the shadows stretched out before them, something told her that the true battle was only just beginning. The silence shattered as a window shattered nearby, the sound echoing like thunder through the heavy night. The sharpness of it stung Samantha's ears, and her heart raced. Panic rippled through the crowd. People instinctively recoiled, but Samantha held her ground, pushing back against the fear that threatened to overwhelm her. "Stay together," she yelled, her voice clear and commanding. "We can't let them intimidate us." Marco's sneer widened, his bravado tinged with menace. "Look at you, little nurse. You think you're their savior? You think shouting will save you from what's coming?" Before she could respond, the deeper voice interjected again. "Because the truth is, kid, this isn't just about them or you," it said, resonating through the crowd. A tall figure stepped into view, his body imposing, the lines of authority etched in his stance. "There are consequences, and they always come due." Samantha desperately tried to pull her gaze away from him, redirecting it towards her neighbors. Fear loomed large, but stronger was the sense of unity she had ignited. "We have each other," she whispered, clutching a neighbor's arm for reassurance. "We're strong together." Yet doubts flickered in the eyes around her, and her heart sank. People were shaken, starting to look back at their homes, as if grappling with an internal battle of their own. The idea of safety, of quiet and comfort, tugged at their consciousness. Marco took advantage of the moment, smirking as he observed the hesitance in their faces. "Just like that, they'll abandon you," he taunted. "You think they care about your bravery? It's better to save your skin. When it comes down to it, no one will stand for a lost cause." "No, we're not lost," Samantha shouted, her insides churning with urgency. "We're fighting for everyone who can't fight for themselves. We can't roll over anymore. If we do, it's over." The days of living in fear. A low chuckle interrupted her, dark and foreboding. "Fear? You think you're being brave? You're just playing games in a deadly world," the tall man said, now visible under the streetlight's muted glow. "The name's Victor, and I'll tell you something. The game is rigged. You have no clue what you're getting into. There are forces at play here that will chew you up and spit you out." Samantha's breath hitched. The more she learned about this tangled mess, the more desperate it felt. But she could see the hesitation in the crowd slowly transforming into resolve, a flicker of hope igniting in their eyes. The heart of her community was pulsing with life, and she wasn't ready to let it dim. "Maybe we don't know what we're up against, but this fight isn't just for now. It's for every person who has suffered under your reign," she declared, her voice gaining momentum. "We've hidden in the shadows for too long. We deserve to stand in the light." The crowd began to shift as the energy surged, a silent agreement whispered through their tense bodies, a tide rising against oppression. Victor's expression hardened, but she caught a glimpse of doubt flickering in his confident facade. "Do you really think you can take us on?" Marco stepped forward, arrogance spilling into his voice. "You're just playing dress up with bravery. This isn't a schoolyard brawl. This is life and death. But what if we're willing to fight for it? Someone shouted from behind her, and she felt her heart lift at the sound. It was raw, real. His words echoed her own thoughts. They weren't just there for themselves but for others too, and that made all the difference. It wasn't about bravery alone. It was about truth and community. With renewed conviction, she turned to face Victor and Marco. You underestimate us. You think we don't know what we're fighting for, but you are wrong. This is our home, our lives, our families. We're no longer going to be the victims. We will be the tide that turns. As the crowd surged forward, an eerie tension filled the air. Shadows danced around them, the sound of distant sirens humming like music to her ears. The challenge laid bare. She could feel the heightening stakes. A passing moment carved away the fear, turning it into determination. But just as her chest swelled with hope, a darker realization crept in. The night was still pregnant with danger. The uncertainty of the confrontation felt almost tangible, pressing in around her like a fog that refused to lift. Are you really ready for what's coming? Victor's voice broke through the fervor, a reminder that the fight was about to escalate. Samantha straightened, determination blazing. Whatever it takes. And just then, the unmistakable sound of footsteps thudded in synchrony behind her. She turned, and the breath caught in her throat as she saw the figures approaching, more bodies, more resolve joining the fray. Who would stand with them? And what would be the cost of their defiance? The night loomed heavy, and they would either rise together or fall apart. The moment hung in the air, fraught with tension, waiting for the next move. The crowd steadied, eyes wide and hearts racing as silhouettes emerged from the shadows. Shadows now illuminated by the sparse streetlights, the newcomers stepped closer. A range of expressions visible: fear, determination, anger, maybe even hope. Who are they? Someone whispered in disbelief, and Samantha's chest tightened at the sight. A small group she recognized as local workers, men and women she had cared for in the clinic. Their faces bore bruises and scars from struggles that mirrored her own, each one a badge of defiance against the unseen forces threatening their lives. Are you with us? She called out to them, feeling that aching need for affirmation. Always, one of the men replied, lifting his chin defiantly. We're tired of hiding. Tired of being afraid. As the group joined the throng, a new energy pulsed among them. The fear that had threatened to tear them apart transformed into a solid wall of unity. They stood shoulder to shoulder, encircling one another, forming a living testament to resilience. Victor's expression shifted from amusement to a steely calculation. This is a nice little gathering, he said, his tone soothing but menacing. But you've built a lovely house of cards. A little breeze and it'll all come tumbling down. Samantha felt cold sweat trickling down her back, but she stood her ground, unconsciously mimicking the brave faces surrounding her. We're not afraid of a breeze, she shot back. We're the storm. The crowd echoed her words, their voices intertwining and rising into a chorus of strength. It was as if they were weaving a tapestry of courage, each voice adding another thread. The sound reverberated through the chilled air, melding into a powerful force against the odds stacked against them. Then a figure emerged at the back. It was Mrs. Delgado, a grandmotherly woman who had been a pillar in the community for years. She hobbled forward, gripping her cane, but her spirit was anything but frail. This isn't just about us, she declared, her voice shaking yet strong. It's about our children. It's about the legacy we leave behind. Are we really going to let these bullies take that away from us? A wave of agreement swept through the crowd, reigniting the flickering flames of determination within each member present. They all glanced at one another, hearts sinking, their fears morphing into actionable resolve. Together, Sam repeated, the word carving hope into the air between them. We can defend our home and our families. We fight for freedom, for dignity, for love. The atmosphere thickened with intensity, but now it felt charged with purpose. It was no longer just survival, it was the chase of justice, the quest for reclaiming their lives. You think you're ready for what comes next? Victor challenged, stepping forward, his confidence now hinting at frustration. You think a bunch of dreamers can stand against real power? You'll regret this. Not as much as you will, a voice replied, low and steady. It was Jack, a young mechanic loved by the community. We're done regretting. We're taking back what's ours. The crowd roared, a primal sound igniting the night. Samantha's heart sang with pride. This was about more than them. It was about reclaiming their lives and healing from the scars that had held them back for too long. Suddenly, a sharp gunshot pierced the air, echoing off the walls like an uninvited specter at a celebration. Gasps erupted from the crowd, and the joy turned into chaos as screams and shouts filled the night. "Get down!" Someone yelled. Samantha instinctively moved to shield Mrs. Delgado, her heart pounding. The air held a mix of panic and adrenaline now. But within the tumult, she locked eyes with Victor, who stood still, a glint of surprise breaking his facade. Would this be their last stand? Or had they finally crossed a line that could not be uncrossed? As the threatening storm began to swirl with greater intensity, Samantha realized this fight had only just begun. What lay ahead would demand everything from them: courage, sacrifice, perhaps even more than they'd ever prepared for. But one thing was clear: they couldn't turn back now. Was this the moment that would define their fates? Or the first step into the unknown? The moment the gunshot rang out, the crowd erupted into chaos. Bodies pushed and shoved, trying to find safety. Fear hung in the air like the acrid smoke from a fire. Samantha's heart raced as she felt Mrs. Delgado tremble beside her. "Stay close," she shouted, clutching the older woman's hand tightly. "Do we run?" Jack yelled as he scanned the surroundings, his voice almost lost amid the confusion. "No," Samantha cried back, her voice rising above the din. "We stand together." She wasn't sure where the courage came from, but it ignited something deep within her. There was a split second of silence when the crowd seemed to catch its breath, captivated by her words. Then, almost instinctively, they began to regroup, creating a protective circle around the older woman and the remaining leaders. Victor's face twisted in a mixture of confusion and fury. "They'll scatter," he shouted, trying to regain control. "Fear will drive them away." But Samantha saw it differently. Fear would bring them together. She lifted her chin, the adrenaline coursing through her. They had already gathered their strength, and now, when push came to shove, unity surged stronger than she thought possible. "Listen," she boomed, the ground beneath her feeling strangely solid despite the chaos. "This is our home. We fight for each other, our families, and our future. We are the storm, remember?" Her rallying cry rippled through the crowd. One by one, faces turned determined. "Together," someone repeated, and the word spread like wildfire. Suddenly, a second shot rang out. This time, a scream followed. A woman fell to the ground, clutching her leg, panic etched on her face. Samantha's gut twisted. Without thinking, she pushed through the throng, weaving between bodies. "Help!" she yelled. "We need to get her to safety." With a few steady hands, they formed a quick makeshift stretcher using jackets and shirts, carefully lifting the woman away from the fray. Every ounce of disbelief mixed with determination in Samantha's chest. They were really doing it, fighting back against the darkness that sought to engulf them. As they retreated into a tighter formation, Samantha caught sight of Victor again. He was growing more frantic, eyes darting back and forth across his gathered forces. She wouldn't give him the chance to tear them apart. "We need to draw them out, the ones who think they're in control," she urged, her voice fervent. "If we can show them we won't back down, we can change everything." Jack stepped forward, emboldened by her passion. "Where do we gather?" he questioned, his gaze locked onto hers. "Let us move to the community center, the heart of this town," she proposed. "They can't control us if we stand strong where it matters most." The crowd responded with a surge of energy, and they retreated sideways towards safety, some of them helping the injured woman. The adrenaline gave them strength while the cheers filled the air with high hopes. It was a dangerous game they were playing, but it felt electric, like the air before a storm. As they reached the doors of the community center, the lights inside flickered on like a beacon. Family, friends, strength, it all collided here. However, doubt began to creep in, a cloud hovering over her joy. The danger wasn't over. It was only escalating. Then, from the shadows behind them, the familiar silhouette of Victor appeared again. The storm had not just begun, it was intensifying. "Think you can hide?" he called out, a dark smile twisting across his face. Samantha's heart sank. What kind of battle had they really started? Could they truly face what was to come? As the doors of the community center swung wide, a new realization washed over her. Clinging to hopes of loyalty and courage wouldn't be enough. They needed something more, an alliance to hold strong against Victor's grip on their lives. What new challenges awaited them inside those doors? Was the community they had fought for ready to stand united against the dark tide rising up to meet them? Inside the community center, the atmosphere was thick with tension. Bright fluorescent lights flickered, illuminating the worried faces around Samantha, each reflecting fear and hope in equal measure. She focused on the injured woman they had carried in, who lay on the floor, her face pale and sweat-soaked, whilst whispers and murmurs filled the space like a rising tide. "Call an ambulance," shouted Jack, moving toward the nearest phone. The others crowded around, their instincts kicking into gear, creating a protective barrier against the chaos outside. Yet, despite the action, Samantha felt like they were all just holding their breath as Jack desperately tried to reach emergency services. Samantha knelt beside the woman. The fear in her own heart steadied as she looked into the suffering woman's eyes. "You'll be okay," she said softly, squeezing her hand, pushing away the uncertainty gnawing at her gut. "Help is on the way." "Help us, please," the woman gasped, panic clawing at her voice, but Samantha could see a flicker of trust igniting within those fearful eyes. That flicker was all she needed. "You're strong. You are not alone," she whispered, hoping to channel something, the courage she didn't fully feel but needed to embody. Suddenly, a loud bang jolted everyone from their focus. The doors of the center groaned and Victor stood there, flanked by a few of his men, a wildness in his eyes. His posture dripped with arrogance and a sense of impending doom. "You think you can lock me out? This is just the beginning." Samantha felt a rush of adrenaline surge through her veins. "You want to intimidate us?" she shouted, standing before him, every nerve in her body alive. "We're not afraid of your threats. We know how to fight back." Victor laughed cruelly, the sound reverberating off the walls. "Fight back? With what? A ragtag crew of scared townsfolk? You're only making it easier for me." Something snapped within Samantha. She thought of the sacrifices they were all willing to make, the light she felt in their solidarity and resolve. It only takes one spark to ignite a flame. "You think you know fear? Look around. We are ready to stand together." A wave of courage spread through the crowd again, like lightning in an electrical storm. They shifted side by side, their resolve igniting a fire in each of them. It was extraordinary, their fear transformed. They were standing tall, hearts racing in unison. Victor's smile faltered, and for the first time uncertainty crossed his face. "You think you can face me? I have power. I have resources," he sneered, shifting back on his heels. "We have community. We have loyalty," Jack shouted, stepping forward to join Samantha, hand clasped tightly with hers. "And you'll see that when we stand together, you can't break us." The room erupted with shouts of agreement. "Together! Together!" echoed around the space, each voice louder, bolder than the last. Outside, the noise intensified. Footsteps could be heard converging, a gathering force against the threat. Victor's laughter faded, and his eyes darkened as panic began to settle in. "You're an insufferable child, Samantha. It's time you learned the hard way." Suddenly, a familiar face broke through the crowd, Mrs. Delgado, her expression a mixture of fierce determination and worry. "We will not back down," she proclaimed, and her rallying words struck a chord among the people. But as hope soared, a bombshell dropped. What about the others? Samantha's heart dropped as another figure appeared beside Victor, a man she never expected. The whispers of betrayal coursed through the crowd, as community members began to look at each other, unsure of who they could truly trust. "Is this some kind of trap?" One voice broke through the tension. Fear rippled through the group, testing the very bond they had just created. Samantha turned to Jack, her heart racing. Is it too late to change the course of this battle? She could feel the fragile threads of trust teetering on the edge. In that moment, the stakes escalated. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance. Help was coming, but would it arrive in time? Would the alliance they'd formed weather the storm? Or would fractures emerge, leaving them vulnerable when they needed each other most? What lay ahead was still uncertain. The next moments would either bind them closer or tear them apart as Victor tightened his grip. The tension hung heavy in the air, like an overripe fruit ready to burst. Samantha could feel the weight of every questioning gaze, hearts pounding in sync like a war drum. The room, once filled with hope, now crackled with doubt. She glanced at Jack, his grip still firm around her hand, and she squeezed tighter, trying to drown out the chaos. "Who is that?" someone whispered, pointing a trembling finger at the newcomer next to Victor. It was Mike, their former neighbor, and a man they had all thought was on their side. "He sold us out." Jack's voice rose above the murmurs. "He's been feeding Victor information." Samantha's stomach twisted. How could Mike do this? They had trusted him. The familiar faces around her now seemed like shadows, warped by betrayal. She felt the flickers of solidarity she had ignited start to flicker like a dying candle. "Shut up, Jack. You don't know what you're talking about," Mike shouted back, advancing a step. "I had no choice." "Right, because selling us out was your only option?" Jack's anger ignited further, his voice shaking the air between them. Samantha's heart raced. They were moments away from a breakdown. These were their neighbors, their friends. "Enough," she yelled, summoning every ounce of authority she had left. "We don't have time for this." Victor smirked, adjusting his stance. "Look at you all, ready to turn on each other. Do you really think you're strong enough to hold out against me? Because let me tell you, I deal in loyalty, and it's clear you don't have much of that left." The crowd stiffened, glancing nervously around. She sensed how easily the trust they had built could unravel like twisting strands of yarn. "We are strong, united, and we won't let fear tear us apart." "Not now," Samantha declared, forcing herself to meet each pair of eyes in the crowd. She saw hesitation but also resolve. "If there's even a glimmer of truth, a whiff of betrayal, we need to confront it together, now." She continued with a fierce determination, as fear itself rumbled in the air like thunder. Jack's voice broke in again, calmer now. "Let us not fight each other. We need to focus on Victor. Divide and conquer. That's what he wants." "I'm done with hearing about what he wants," Mike shouted, desperation creeping into his eyes. "I have to survive." Those words struck like arrows. Samantha felt a pang of empathy for Mike's fear. "We understand it's scary," she began, trying to regain control. "But turning against each other isn't survival. It's a death sentence." Outside, the sirens echoed closer, wailing like mourning doves, and suddenly a flicker of hope caught fire again, a light breaking through the gathering storm. "Look, if the help gets here in time, we can." Jack started, but his words were lost as chaos erupted again. A loud bang from the entrance silenced everyone. As Victor's men, emboldened, rushed in, their intentions all too clear. Samantha's heart raced. "Now," she ordered. "Form a line and protect each other. Don't let them through." The crowd reacted instinctively, surging forward to barricade against the threat. "Together," they shouted in unison, a fierce cry piercing the suffocating air. As the struggle began, Samantha could feel the pulse of action and fear intertwining with moments of bravery. She ducked and weaved between frantic bodies, her focus on protecting the woman on the floor, vulnerable and still. "You need to hold on," she cried to her. "Help is almost here." There was shouting and grunting, the sound of bodies colliding, a frenzied dance of fight and desperation. She caught sight of Jack defending Mrs. Delgado, the fight in him the embodiment of their community. In that instant, hope flickered brighter. But then a gunshot echoed like a thunderclap, causing everyone to freeze momentarily, a jolt of fear rushing through the room. Time slowed as Samantha realized there was danger they had never anticipated. Would they fall apart in that moment, or could they defy the odds? "Hold on," she screamed, adrenaline pumping through her veins. "We can't give up now." As gunfire crackled outside and chaos reigned around her, she desperately sought a way to turn the tide. Was it too late to unite? Would they rise or fall as the curtain on this battle began to rise? Until the bitter end, their collective spirit was all they had left. But the question loomed, heavier than the air around them. Who would emerge when the dust settled? Would trust be kindled anew, or extinguished forever? Samantha felt the air thicken, heavy with uncertainty as the gunshot shattered the fragile calm. The crowd quaked, eyes wide, breaths held, but she saw something shift in Jack, fire igniting behind his eyes. His determination was contagious. "Stay close. We have to stick together," he shouted, a rallying cry that surged through the crowd. The energy reformed, sparking into action. They weren't going to let fear cripple their resolve. Behind the hastily formed line, Samantha turned her attention back to the woman on the ground. "Stay with me. Help is coming." she urged, pressing her hand against the woman's shoulder, grounding her in her presence. The woman's eyes flickered open, their fear mirroring the chaos surrounding them. Please, I can't, she whimpered, pain etching deep lines on her face. Just hold on, okay? You're stronger than this. We're all in this together, Samantha promised, the words tumbling from her mouth like the grounding dust of reassurance. More gunshots rang out, but Samantha clenched her jaw. There was no going back now. Each time a bullet struck, it felt like a distant thunderclap, mingling with her heartbeat. Together, the crowd moved as an entity, arms locked. It swayed peacefully, facing the storm that threatened to rip them apart. Jack held his position, fierce and desperate. We protect our own, he yelled, sparking a roar of agreement that washed over the gathered. Look, someone shouted, pointing to the chaos at the entrance. A struggle erupted as Victor's men pushed further into the room. Shadows loomed large under the dim lights, their faces twisted in malice. Don't let them in. Samantha's voice rang out, filled with urgency. The crowd responded, muscles straining as they pushed against the tide of darkness. Samantha joined in, her heart pounding, echoing the strength of the others as they held the line against Victor's men. The tension crackled like static electricity. She glanced at Jack. He was sweating, the muscles in his jaw tight, unwavering even in the face of fear. Another round of gunfire rang out, this time closer. Is everyone okay? She called out, worry coiling in her gut. Murmurs of concern helicoptered around her. Reassurances mingled with the scent of sweat and adrenaline. They were alive. They were fighting back. Suddenly, the front doors burst open wider, and out of the horde charged Victor himself, a feral grin plastered on his face. You think you can protect each other? You're a ridiculous bunch, hoping for safety in numbers. Don't listen to him, Jack shouted, pushing forward. He thrives on fear. We're stronger than that. Samantha's pulse quickened as she recognized the truth in his words. Victor wanted them to fracture, to doubt, to fall apart. But they wouldn't. He. Not today. The crowd replied with a chorus of unified shouts, roaring back against Victor's taunts. We're not afraid of you. Amidst the chaos, Samantha could feel the bond drawing tighter. A shared determination suspended the moment in an unwavering unity. Then, without another second to spare, she let intuition guide her. Follow me, she shouted. Pivoting, Samantha led the charge toward the fight, pushing through the crowd. She made her way through the fray, heart racing as she turned to see Jack right behind her. With him at her side, she felt an unyielding strength coursing through her veins. Together, she shouted, charging into the chaos, a blend of fear and courage intertwining. They were engulfed in the brawl, but one hope pulsed like a beating heart in the center of the storm, the promise of unity against Victor's chaos. Yet, just as it seemed they were gaining ground, the crowd fell silent as yelling erupted behind Victor. A voice boomed louder than the rest, grounding them all in fear and surprise. What is this mess? Samantha spun around to see a figure looming in the entrance, silhouetted by the bright light behind him. Her heart sank as recognition cascaded over her. Victor shrank back, fear replacing the cocky smirk on his face. No, not you. But who was he? And how would his presence change everything they fought for? The figure moved forward with a purpose that demanded attention. It was Marco, flanked by his own crew, but the way he carried himself ignited a shift in the atmosphere. Where there had been chaos and uncertainty, now there was a glimmer of potential. What's going on here? He challenged, his voice commanding, a stake driven deep into the trembling ground. The crowd instinctively parted, giving him space, and Victor's sneer faded. This was a development neither side expected. Marco, Victor growled, anger rimming his tone. This is none of your business. No. Marco took a step closer, scrutinizing the faces around him. It looks like the people are rising up against you. Don't they know you're nothing without your fear tactics? Samantha felt a rush of exhilaration. Marco had sided with them. But cautious whispers filled her mind. Could they trust him? The storm still raged within the community's heart. She needed to act fast before doubt spread like fire. Listen, Samantha shouted, silencing the escalating tension. This is a time to unite. We have suffered too long. She raised her hands, trying to both calm the crowd and assert her determination. From the corner of her eye, she saw Mrs. Delgado nodding, solidifying the mixed emotions swirling around. This isn't just about us anymore. It's about our families, our children, and our right to live freely. We've allowed fear to dictate our lives for too long. It's time we reclaim our power. Each word became a shard of steel, igniting a slow-building roar amongst the assemblage. Unity felt palpable, pulling vibrant threads of strength across the room. Samantha locked eyes with Jack, who radiated confidence, his posture erect and fierce. The spark was in the air, it felt electric. Marco glanced at Victor, a triumphant smirk playing on his lips. Believe me, the tide is turning. He stepped into the center of the chaotic room and extended a hand towards Samantha. I'm with you. And I know others who feel the same. The crowd inhaled sharply, the words trailing off like shadows breaking at dawn. But why should we trust you? Jack demanded, his brow furrowed but his defense unwavering. Because I see the fight. A fight that doesn't belong to any of us alone but to all of us. Marco's voice boomed, filled with conviction. This isn't about loyalty to vicious ties. It's about loyalty to what truly matters, your families. With that single statement, it was like a dam had broken. Together, they shouted, echoing the solidarity of their collective heartbeats, intertwining desperation that demanded change. Victor's face twisted in rage. Fools! You really think you can stand united against me? You're playing with fire. Samantha stepped forward, emboldened by Marco's support. Fire is exactly what we need. It's time for change. Her heart raced, boundless urgency tethered to every soul before her. We are not afraid. We're doing this for everyone who couldn't fight for themselves, our children and our elders. The time for change is now. The tumult outside grew louder, sirens drawing closer. They're coming. Someone exclaimed, panic lacing their voice. If we stick together, we hold the power. Samantha took a deep breath, recalling the faces of those who had suffered, their pain fueling her resolve. In an explosive moment, the tension erupted as voices surged, and the crowd pushed forward in a unified front against Victor's men as they advanced, fire blazing in their souls. Samantha dove right into the heart of that unity, Jack at her side, knowing they had crossed a point of no return. As the confrontation escalated, the first responders arrived, lights flashing and sirens piercing the night. The sight felt like a beacon, illuminating the hardened local community that had banded together against tyranny. Chaos erupted briefly as police officers and paramedics flooded in, quickly assessing the situation. Everyone stay back. We're here to help. But the scene was now a cacophony of noise, shouts, cries of pain, and the pounding pulse of adrenaline. We can't let them divide us. Marco called, echoing Samantha's sentiments. Fight for each other. Just as the forces of law began to separate the gathered community and Victor's men, they suddenly found themselves standing firm. The realization washed over her: a family forged in the fire of struggle could stand together against anything that threatened their existence. Victor's smirk faltered again, and Samantha seized the moment. This is our community, and we will take it back. And just like that, the tide turned. They confronted Victor and his crew as a solid mass, voices intertwining. The ultimate declaration of their resolve. They became a force of unity, a living wall of strength. As darkness dispersed under the flood of flashing lights and sirens, Samantha felt a wave of emotion wash over her. They had fought against fear, against betrayal, and had emerged stronger together. It was a long road ahead, but they had taken the first step towards reclaiming their lives, their dreams, their home. The echoes of their voices resonating long after the chaos died down would remind them. They had faced the storm and emerged victorious. This was just the beginning. There was still much to rebuild, still wounds to heal, and the fight for their community continued. Together they could face the future, unwavering, hand in hand, forging a path forward filled with hope and resilience. Now is the moment for you to stand with us. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and make your voice heard. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this thrilling ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this inspiring transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to share these powerful stories and be a part of the change. Your support truly matters.